Hey everybody, this is Peter Palmiotti, and this is Making Comics and Art, episode 304. I initially got the last episode number wrong, but I fixed it. So we're at 304. Um, I apologize for the crappy camera. Actually, the camera's good. It's my doing it without streaming. Somehow my computer picks up picks it up as a worst image, but it doesn't really matter. um, you're not here for high quality production, hopefully. I promise I will address it and fix it in the future, but I got lots of other fish to fry. And if you know me of late, I've been trying to draw a lot more, and I recently got a penciling gig, penciling my first full comic book for somebody else. It's a paid gig, and I really wanted that because I've been an inker for over 30 years, and inkers aren't as in demand, and I'm trying to up my other skills. Um, so that I can get paid better. Um, but if you appreciate my channel or the art I share across the internet, on my socials, um, then please consider becoming a Patreon. It's a couple of things I'm doing on Patreon starting next month. Is I'm going to do a pinup each month, and I'll be making that into a print. So if you're a Patreon for any amount, and I finish the latest, I'm going to ask everybody in a post who wants one of these, and if you say yes at that time, then I'll make sure I have your address. I'll message you if I don't, and I'll send you off a print of whatever the latest is. I'm doing the original X-Men crew for the first one, and maybe I'll do polls in the future for what the majority of people on my Patreon want to see me draw. Um, so yeah, I got that going on, and I'm also going to be doing a comic with my friend and partner in crime, Jay, who's going to help me co-write it. It's a comic project called Nice Monster, and I'm going to be developing it and knocking out pages. And if you're $5 or up, you can see that as it happens. But also, if you're $5 or up, you can learn about some of the comic projects I can't necessarily talk about publicly, or even just learn things about them before anybody else. I got Designated, which I'm inking. I got Retro, which I gotta finish that book, and other things as they arise. But yeah, so I'm enjoying a lot more, and I've been, I thought to do this whole print thing and get to working on a comic finally on Patreon, because I need the encouragement, but also I know plenty of artists who have Patrons, and if I could, if I could make a couple of thousand on there, I wouldn't have to worry about having to take on a lot of work or getting a day job or even a part-time job, or I could just focus entirely on my own projects and on Patreon, and what a perfect world that would be. But yeah, so uh, join my Patreon. Any amount will be greatly appreciated and helpful to help me get to my goal there. Um, if you're new here to my YouTube channel, or if you've been here a long time but you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe and also like this video. Share it out with your friends. What other business? I don't know. Some people have this. it's it's funny. I've watched a lot of YouTubers, and it's almost as if the first 5 minutes of each video is them reading off a script. Although it sounds natural with a lot of people, I have never mastered that technique. But do all the stuff, make me become a highly successful YouTuber, because hey, if I reach my watched hours here, I could also monetize my videos and get super chats and get memberships eventually here as well, and that would be amazing. But let's see, on with the show. So like I said, I'm just doodling, but I'm going to be talking about good writing versus bad writing. And much like artwork, good writing, bad writing, it's all opinion based. It's like, what I like, you might hate, and what you love, I might dislike. Um, so, but there's some basics. Like I was thinking in regards to, because this is comics and art. Man, this is what is it? Is it the light? Let's see. If I wait, there's a setting. Where's the setting? Why are you not working? Okay. That's strange. It looks I dimmed the light and it looks not much better. I really hate that the focus on it. Is it my overhead light? I don't know. Nah. You can barely see the image I'm drawing. Anyway. So yeah, since we're talking about comic books, I almost feel petty approaching it like this. But sometimes good writing and bad writing can be described by how light or how heavy a comic book is written. And it's like I've all maybe it's because of my reaction. Like when I was younger and really into reading comics and picking them up every month, and I would hear some other fans talking about their favorite comics and what they were reading, and that was their reaction, and my reaction to it was the squirm. So I guess it's something that's never fully gone away, but it is true to a certain extent. Like if a comic is overwritten, I don't enjoy it as much. If a comic book is underwritten, I don't enjoy it as much. I don't care how beautiful the artwork is. Now, mind you, like from my perspective, I always go pick up a comic strictly because of the artwork, and if it's got a good story, good characters, something that grabs me, good writing, then I stick around. Then I'm more than likely to stick around. And yeah, like a perfect example, like plenty of people have read X-Men, and Chris Claremont, who wrote it for years and years and years and years and years and years, decades, right? I remember reading X-Men back in the 80s and 90s, and he is a heavy writer. You know, it's like I was looking at um, some of the issues leading up to Dark Phoenix, and noticed just how heavily written it was. Um, Mind you, I remember, you know, I actually remember reading those books for the first time, and I remember enjoying it thoroughly. But reading it now, because you realize like writing styles change in across all media. Um, you know, I definitely notice um, different writing approaches, say in movies, and that's created by years and years worth of movies about vampires or movies about specific things. If you come out with a new movie with a vampire, there's a shorthand. There's like you don't have to go into every single detail about what a vampire is. You can sort of cover it in a short amount of time in a short amount of detail. Um, and the same thing is true with comics. Like comic writing is much different than it was back when Chris was you know super popular. Um, and But even then, like I know, like I said, there were fans who were picking up the book, loved the artwork, loved the characters, but felt he was a little heavy-handed, and it's true. Like um, the dialogue was spot on. The um, the atmosphere he created was spot on, but there was a lot of it that was already covered in the visuals. Um, so I would definitely tag that as some, you know, not bad writing, but not necessary. Like, it definitely wasn't written bad. It just covered what was already there. And that, you know, if I was the editor, and not a super fan of Chris and wasn't worried about you know him reacting harshly to me helping out the book. I would definitely cut out a lot of the narration boxes that were created, um, and I think it would have been a much smoother read and a much better read. Um, I never remember any dialogue that was heavy-handed, but maybe some of it might have been. Um, but it's just like nothing comes to mind right now. Um, and yeah, I mean, he was such a genius in regards to um, how characters played off each other and how his stories sort of evolved and revealed themselves, um, and how he would go from one sort of adventure to another. There would always be some subtle build up in the current issue you're reading, um, that would play out, 2 or 3 issues down the line. So he was definitely like he. There was a reason why he got to write the X-Men for generations. Um, because he's definitely one of the highly regarded hallmark writers up at Marvel. And you think of all the people that went to Image and created Image. A lot of them started on the X-Men, and it was a mega popular title. And, Lin Wen started it, and Chris took over, and it became stellar. And I, I am 1,000% positive that, regardless of, Dave Cockrum and then John Byrne and then everybody who followed, like, if the writing was shit on the book, it doesn't matter how beautiful the artwork is. That is definitely, uh, plays a big part. There's got to be a balance of good to decent artwork, or decent to good artwork, and also decent to good writing. Um, so, like, I can't think of an example off the top of my head, and perhaps I should do research and write shit down. Well, it's not how I do these videos. It's all off the top of my head, um, for the most part. So yeah, it's definitely been occasions of too little writing, um, and I understand a minimalist approach, and you're trying to create something different and appreciate that. But I never, in quotes, read a comic with limited dialogue and narration and what have you, um, where I was like utterly enthralled in the comic. Uh, Now, mind you, an example that does come to mind right now, I wouldn't say the book overall has limited writing, but there's definitely been pages and pages of action or moody scenes within a book like Hellboy. Um, Now, Hellboy was initially written by John Byrne, at Mike Mignola's request, but Mike took over pretty quickly. I figured exactly, but yeah, I think maybe the second volume, Mike took over, and yeah, it's definitely pages upon pages upon pages of limited words on a page, but overall, uh, a good balance from what I remember. Um, so I guess Hellboy is a good example, to where it's a lot leaner than an average comic book, but does a good job of balance. Because a lot of what Hellboy is fighting monsters, and there doesn't need to be a lot of dialogue there. He's not quippy like Spider-Man. Um, so not much there. You know, him saying some catchphrases. No, Hellboy doesn't have catchphrases, but he does have some snarky remarks or whatever. It's been a while since I read Hellboy, but so that is definitely one of the things that has come to mind as far as good writing, bad writing. I will cite another example. Well, everybody can think of Alan Moore, is the perfect example of overwriting, to the point where uh, I'm going to sneeze. Oh no. Sorry about that. It is September, Almost. I get my sneezing fits. So Alan Moore, Watchmen in particular, um, is a book I read, and I don't have Watchmen in front of me. I put stuff I've read in storage, so everything I have nearby is mostly stuff I haven't read, or at least want to reread again. Um, and so yeah, that's what my shelves are full of. Books I've yet to read because I haven't been reading on a regular basis. But neither here nor there. Alan Moore. So Watchmen in particular, um, it switches from comic format to where I don't remember having a problem reading anything within the comic pages. But it switches to sort of novelish pages. There's illustrations on those pages. But it's mostly wall of text for a couple of pages. And something about it turned me off. I realize that there's history on those pages, and there's more information regarding the world and what's going on, and I just can never read those pages. I can, you can curse me in the comments, but I'll admit here for the world, I never read those pages. I thoroughly enjoyed Watchmen. If anything, big fan of Dave Gibbons. I think Dave did a phenomenal job illustrating it in a sort of old style, 9 panels on a page. Phenomenal artwork in that book. And Alan Moore, he created something very, very special. But I was, like it wasn't the first example I ever saw in a comic where it switched from sort of comic format to novel format. But there have been other cases where I was reading a book and did that, and I didn't read the text pages, as I'll just call them. Yeah, like Watchmen, phenomenal book, but then there's stuff like Spawn. So maybe this is a slightly different variation. But when Todd McFarlane started Spawn for Image Comics, I was super excited. I wasn't a huge Todd McFarlane fan, but I was a fan, and I was interested in Spawn, and I picked up a copy at the local shop just to look at it, and I was like, okay, like I really like the artwork in here. I'm sold. I'll pick it up and see what I think. And mind you, I read at least I bought and read at least the first 50 issues straight, and picked up random issues thereafter, because other artists took over the book and yeah, it got weird and wacky sometimes. Anyway, but one of the things Todd was doing, and again, he was doing the TV people. So there'd be TV screens, and there'll be three different newscasters. That shit turned me off. It's like I skimmed some of it, but it's like, oh, okay, this is what this guy's saying, and this guy of a different ilk, just different personality is saying it in his own voice, and blah blah blah. I skimmed most of those pages. I know it added to the story, and maybe I was missing out on some information. But they were just visually they were boring pages, um, and story wise, I did try to read it a couple of times. It was just boring. So I passed. So that's slightly different. It wasn't full text pages, um, but it was pages with pretty much boring illustrations, um, giving you a lot of dialogue that was boring. So again, curse me in the comments if you think otherwise, or if you agree with me. So that's another example of bad writing. Like sometimes, I know it's a lot of work to do a monthly book, and Todd was trying to do a monthly book, so I give him credit. Like I don't slap his wrist for whatever shortcuts he was implementing to get the book out on a good schedule. Like Spawn was on schedule where 90% of all other Image books weren't. Um, much like artists take shortcuts so that everything isn't over when rendered on a comic page. Writers also do shortcuts sometimes. And I guess in the case of Todd, that was a shortcut for both the writer and the artist, um, being him. Just because it has more words doesn't mean um, it's more work for the writer. Because I look at that as something that it's where he doesn't have to be creative. It's sort of like, okay, like this issue has 3 pages of um, TV announcers talking. That's just he just falls into that TV announcer page groove and churns those out. So it's almost like churning out a simplified comic page. Uh, so I do think of those as both the writer and the artist taking a mental break. um, so what else? What else is good writing, bad writing, specifically for comics? Um, Let me think about this. Let me see if I go close up on this. If you see it any better. If it will react. Nah. It's so blurry. This is better settings. I am sorry. Yeah. You don't need it that far away. Anyway. I am sorry. Oh, I really need to be streaming for you to get better visual here. Um, I've tried this before. It's the best. This is the best it gets. It sucks. Um, so good writing, bad writing. It's all opinion and my personal taste. Um, I'll tell you something that gets under my skin. I don't know. Um, I I like serious books. I like funny books, and you know, definitely a combination of the two. But if a book gets too silly, and I cite Harley Quinn, if a book is too silly, then more than likely I have no interest in it. You know, maybe because I don't have kids. I don't know. uh, but yeah, it's like I loved like a book like um, Master of Kung Fu. Now, Master of Kung Fu, when I was following it, Doug Mensch was writing it. Paul Glacy was the artist. Mike Zeck took over. Gene Day took over. Um, it always had amazing art. I think Paul Glacy was phenomenal. Um, but Doug Mensch was a freaking. Doug Mensch was like a. What was the? I'm not going to think of his name. There's a screenwriter. Probably hasn't done anything in a long time. I think he's still alive. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name. Anyway, Doug Mensch is an amazing writer. He's tight. Um, and maybe, you can consider him a heavy writer. It's definitely, it was of the generation though. Like it's almost like I was blaming Chris Claremont for heavy writing, but it's almost of the generation that comics were written just heavier naturally. Um, it's definitely like a comic book nowadays for today's generation um, is written a lot different, and I don't necessarily like comics written for today's generation because they are so different. Um, I hang out with all the old timers, or at least the people who appreciated comics from the '60s to the '90s. Um, so I can't really speak on what today's comics are written like because the comics I'm reading today are so inspired by the previous generation of comics. Um, but what did I was talking about? Master of Kung Fu. So Master of Kung Fu is another example of good writing. Although it was heavy, I won't slap a sticker on it stating that it was too heavy. Um, Although there was probably a couple of pages here, a couple of pages there that maybe I didn't read on the first time I read the book, but upon reading it again, and that's how you can tell great writing. If you go back and read a comic over, and it's like I read X-Men over many a times, I read Hellboy over many a times, Nexus, like so many books, so many books. Um, if you go back and read it again, that means you freaking love it, enjoy it. Nothing's perfect. It's hard to be perfect. It's hard to be perfect for everyone. But that's why like everybody has slightly different tastes and whatnot. Oh, I remember why I was coming here to Master Kung Fu. Um, so yeah, like when I cite the example of Harley Quinn, like I like the character of Harley Quinn, and I like her in the movies, and she's silly in the movies. Um, but like if the Harley Quinn comic was written seriously, I would be a lot more into it because there's so much you can do. Like she's somebody who's super intelligent and gets twisted from a relationship and you know goes to the dark side. There's a lot of interesting things, roads you can travel with that character, and the comic book, yes, written by my brother and his wife. Um, they have a silly approach, and like there's people that love that, and definitely you know proof of that is that it has sold very 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 well. Um, but it's not of my taste, and the reason I cite Master Kung Fu is sometimes it gets silly, and a little bit is okay. A lot, uh, a lot is hard to take it. But it's like I kind of sort of remember. I don't know. Was it an amusement park? And there's statues or something that started talking like cartoon characters. I don't know. Um, that Shang-Chi is walking through and interacting. It was okay. It was okay, but it was not the height of the series for me. Uh, the height of the series is the individual characters and their personalities, but also it was written like a James Bond movie with the action. I remember the girl. I forget the girl's name, but on a motorcycle and just flying through the pages and panels and um, really just like crazy car action. And one of the things, artistically speaking, one of the things Lacey didn't do were action lines, and it's really interesting to have sort of stills of cars rolling or flying and without any action lines. Uh, but I thought it was effective. Um, but yeah, when things got a little silly, it was like, what's going on? This is not the book I signed up for. Um, so I guess you know, like you always want to keep the reader interested, and so you want to introduce a different flavor. Um, but if you're picking up oranges and it starts tasting like a banana, then eventually you're gonna say, no, 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 I want oranges, damn it, and stop picking it up. So, but it never got too silly for too long. I just a little bit. So I'm going on for 40 minutes. Did I tackle a lot? Nah. I mean, there's so much about what's good in writing, what's bad writing. Um, I tackled some surface stuff. you know, um, maybe rediscover, not rediscover. What am I thinking of? Maybe I'll get into this topic again at some point, but uh, I think that those are my major signs of good writing versus bad writing. Like if you go too heavy with writing in comics, definitely a bad thing. If you go too light, is not enough to um, juice to captivate me. You know, like I said, the art could be amazing, but it's got to be the best artist on the market doing his best work. Otherwise, yeah, I may pick up an issue or two. But like when Travis Chevalier, or however you pronounce his name, was doing Wildcats, like I thought that stuff was amazing. Like visually, like his artwork was outstanding. Uh, and you know, the story interests me enough. You know, so it was a pass. It was something I continued to collect. Um, but if the writing was subpar a little bit, you know, I would have probably said, okay, you know, I got a couple of beautiful issues with his beautiful artwork, but I'm done. um, and yeah, so maybe I'll revisit this at some point. This topic. That's what I was trying to think of as my brain was blanking. Um, so that was a topic presented to me um, by Len Jennings, I believe his name is. Somebody who follows me on the interwebs. If you ever have a topic you want me to talk about or cover, please put it in the comments, and we'll see if I have anything to say about uh, what have you. You know, if you want me to talk about Pikachu, there's only so much I could say about Pikachu. But like I said early on, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. If you haven't already, please like this video. Share it out with your friends. Most of all, become a patron and try to get a community going over there. And yeah, just trying to draw a lot more. And this is what I do in my videos now. All right, so love you all. See you again soon. Have a good one. Till next time. Keep making comics and art. Bye for now. Peace.